Are Christians single issue voters? I hear this brought up all the time when it comes to election season as sort of a I don't know, kind of a defeater against Christians, that we simply care about one or two issues and will vote only on the basis of this. So what is single issue voting, and should we do it? So how would we define single issue voting?
Yeah, single issue voting is looking at a candidate or political party's stance on one particular issue and making that the reason why you vote for them.
Okay. Or
don't vote for them.
Or don't vote. Okay.
Yeah.
So a lot of people will say that kind of the thing I hear a lot when I hear single issue voting, it's almost always tied to Christians and voting on the basis of the pro-life movement.
Exactly. Yeah.
So people will say there's lots of issues. You're simply caring about this one issue, and why do you care about it? So we'll kind of just give a brief answer to the question of single issue or not, and then we'll talk about it in terms of that issue specifically.
Yeah.
So simply put, and I think you'd agree, right?
Mm-hmm.
There are issues that will disqualify someone from office
for
my vote, but there never is going to be one single issue that will qualify them for my vote.
Yeah, that gets my vote immediately.
I think single issue voting is often framed as if it's a positive thing, as if I've picked one issue and I've said all that matters is if you agree with me on this one issue.
Mm-hmm.
And this can happen. I don't think it happens, hopefully not too often, but people will say, I'm going to vote for this person. I don't care about how they're going to impact culture, the border, economics, whatever, but they are going to give my union all these contracts, and so I'll make more money off of it.
Yeah.
That would be a single issue voter.
I'm sure that happens more than we'd
really
like to
bad
admit.
way. Yeah, because you have a responsibility
Yeah.
to think about how that vote's going to impact everyone.
Exactly.
Or you could say, this guy's pro-life. He really says what I want to hear, but then he wants to start World War III, or wants to round up all of one ethnicity, or something crazy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully that wouldn't happen. But, so of course, that one issue in a positive sense doesn't qualify someone for my vote.
Yeah, exactly.
But when it comes to the opposite, the inverse of that, every one of us is a single issue voter in the sense of there are certain issues that will disqualify someone from getting our vote.
And that's often a wise thing.
That is, yeah. It's in principle, it's absolutely a wise thing. It just matters on what that single issue
For
is.
sure. Totally.
That you're saying, right? Again, we're in a tough spot with our politicians to where there's just a lot of bad stuff. There's a lot of bad policies. So we could say if somebody, again, is going to start unnecessary wars, well, I don't want to vote for them. If they are pro-abortion in the 9th month, that should be obvious for everyone. That should be obvious. I will not vote for that person.
Mm-hmm.
Sadly, it's not as universal as it should be. I think that distinction is an important one to make. Positive versus negative.
Totally.
Disqualifying versus qualifying.
Yeah, totally. And I think before we consider or get into why we think that specific issue should be something that we disqualify people on, it's important to look at the kind of the one compelling argument that people bring up against Christians and their so-called single issue voting. And I think their main argument is that God cares about all areas of life, so we should vote with an all-of-life approach, right?
You're talking about abortion here.
Yeah.
So we can't just vote for the pro-life candidate because God cares
about
all of
everything.
life.
Yeah, He doesn't just care about this specific issue. He cares about a ton of different things, and there's a ton of different issues that affect many, many people other than preborn human beings.
Yes. Yeah.
Right. And so they'll say, right, God cares about all lives and all aspects of life. So when we determine who we're voting for based on someone's stance on one issue, we're neglecting their stances on other issues that God cares about, right? You can't choose a candidate because of their stance on one moral issue, because all moral issues matter, and there shouldn't be an outweighing of one over the other.
So we hear that a lot with, I've heard it a lot recently with younger voters and the pro-life movement, and saying, well, if you're not a socialist on top of that, you're not holistic pro-life.
Exactly.
So meaning it's the government's job from the womb to the tomb to make sure people have all their needs met.
Exactly.
Which, it violates other biblical principles, right?
Totally.
It confuses, it mixes up the negative command of you shall not murder with the positive commands of providing for those that are in need. Yeah. So the government's job is to enact justice. It's not to be our parents.
Exactly.
It's not to be our caretaker. That is the job of us as individuals to care for those in our families, communities that are in need.
Mm-hmm.
But to then say, I'm going to forcibly take money from one person to give it to another in the name of compassion,
it's not just at all. Yeah.
And obviously socialist and communist governments are the most oppressive in
killed the most people
recent centuries. Yes. And have killed the most in human history.
Yeah, exactly.
More than all religious wars out of all history combined.
Mm-hmm.
So there's obviously, that falls short in different ways, I guess.
Yeah, but that's kind of what they bring up, right? God cares about all these different areas of life. We should too, and we should vote considering all those different things, right? So if this person gets 3 moral issues right, but they might get abortion wrong, well, 3 against 1, right? Wouldn't you vote for that person?
Yeah. I was just at a gathering of pastors, and I heard one of the pastors point out, like, we vote on pro-life, but abortions were lowest under Democratic administrations, or at least one in particular. And I understood the point he was making, and I respect that. I also think that neglects a few things, right? One is abortion is usually most controlled not by national policy, but by state policies.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one thing that's very important. And the state you live in is going to be radically different. But also, I hate to tell you, but it really ignores what happened under President Trump.
Mm.
And I'm saying this as someone who did not think that President Trump would actually help the pro-life cause.
Mm-hmm.
I thought he was faking it. I thought he was not.
Yeah.
But we have to be honest and admit when we're wrong and say he appointed certain justices that overturned Roe.
Yeah.
And that will lead to and has led to thousands of people. I think it's on the low end, but
it was significant.
In the world today that would have been killed.
A moving in the right direction for sure.
Yes,
and
so
if we denied that, we'd be foolish.
Yes. So I think we just have to, as Christians, we want to live in the truth and acknowledge the truth. And that old argument that I heard for so long, and I had many friends tell me the same thing, is voting for a president in regards to that doesn't matter. It just hasn't proven to be true in recent history. And of course, right now we have a presidential candidate saying she wants to pack the Supreme Court or she has in the past, right?
Yeah.
To reinstate Roe and things like that.
Exactly. And I think that is kind of a short-sighted opinion that pastor's sharing, because it doesn't take into account the fact that this leader is actively working to make abortion more accessible.
Yes.
Right. So abortion there might have been less abortions, but are they working to making it more accessible, making it more prevalent in our culture? Yeah. We should consider that.
And there are the short-term impacts and there are the long-term
exactly.
impacts, right? So like maybe short-term you provide contraception and so there's a dip.
Yeah.
But if over the long term we're just encouraging this kind of lifestyle.
It's okay, it's fine. Yeah. This is something that people need, women need this. Long term we're going to see a lot more abortions even after they've left office,
Okay. Yeah, so this whole idea of holistic pro-life, I think often it's a distraction.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm being honest, I think it's distracting from we have a grave moral issue.
Yeah.
A great moral evil being perpetrated in our country, and people are being told this is totally acceptable, and a lot of people are believing it and acting accordingly. And if they knew what they were doing, I think they'd be appalled, right?
Exactly.
But we make it acceptable, make it normal. So
we're trying to extend it to the most extreme levels.
Yes, I don't think that if you say you shouldn't murder that person, that you're then on the hook to take care of them for the rest of their lives.
Exactly.
That is not
doesn't work like
compute.
That. Yeah.
No, you can say do not murder, and also say that person should be given freedom to pursue a life of prosperity.
Yeah.
So
totally. Yeah. And so, we've seen that that's kind of a foolish argument, and I kind of want to work through some different responses to somebody who would bring that up, right? The first is that people who often bring this argument up, as we've already said, are often single-issue voters themselves, right? I often hear people use this argument to say, hey, I get that this person is pro-life, but they don't care about X issue or hold X position, so you really should consider more than just the issue of abortion. Why? Because it seems you're only considering X issue or not considering the issue of abortion enough, right? I've heard people say, not necessarily Christians, but I've heard people say, I can't vote for this candidate because they don't support abortion, which means you're a single issue voter. You're just basing your vote on the wrong thing.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So,
Exactly. You're a single issue voter, but you're promoting something that is very damaging
and evil.
dishonors God and
Yeah.
evil and destroys life.
Exactly.
Yes. Yeah. That's a good point.
Second, I would say my second response would be that there are issues that matter more than others. That's just true, right? I don't want Christians to be fooled by this all of life argument, because of course all of life matters. That's not what I'm saying, that it doesn't. But Christians do care about every aspect of human life, and historically that's proven to be true, right? Christians have started hospitals. We've often brought education reform into different countries and things like that. So we do care about different areas of life, and we're often fighting for more than just one issue. We're not just fighting for abortion or to get rid of it, but we're fighting for a whole bunch of different issues. However, right, there are issues that do have moral weight than others because they're foundational to our worldview as Christians, which I would say sanctity of life is definitely one.
Yeah.
Right? Without voting the right way on a foundational issue, how would it make sense to seek change in these other issues that stem from that same foundation?
Yes. And
Right.
I think it also comes back, as we've talked about in previous videos, to what is the role of government.
Mm-hmm.
If your view of the role of government is that they are basically a step below God, they're to provide everything for you, then it becomes very hard to discern what is of the primary importance.
Yeah.
If you look at what the scripture says, which is primarily the government's to provide for freedom and punish evil,
Mm-hmm.
right, and restrict evil, defend the innocent, these very basic things, then you understand that those things in terms of how the government should work should have priority. So
Yeah.
if the government is allowing hundreds of thousands of its own people to be killed every year, which is the case with abortion, then that needs to become a top tier issue for us.
Totally. 100%.
It just has to.
Yeah, and the issue of whether or not it's okay to murder an innocent life created in God's image matters more than a person's position
It
on
does. And
economy
that,
or environment or whatever.
For
it might
sure.
be.
And then you have, like, I don't know, education, which the government probably shouldn't even be in.
Yeah.
There's definitely no biblical precedent for it.
Mm-hmm.
That's for the family. But for the government then to us be fighting about whether we should teach critical race theory in schools,
Yeah.
well, if you're going to make that the issue because you think that the way to end racism is by teaching this specific viewpoint, which again we've talked about in other videos, but well, that's a totally minor issue compared to are people allowed to live
Exactly.
and have life and freedom, the basic things that are guaranteed in our Constitution.
Yeah, exactly. And really, if you think about why we're trying to better society, it's all based on the foundational Christian principle that everyone is made in God's image, and everyone has value and dignity in this life. And the first thing we should be fighting for on that principle is to end abortion.
Yeah.
Right? Not to care about education and ignore abortion, right? We should be caring about abortion first and then looking at these other issues.
I think other people will say on this, I'm kind of adding something here, but
That's okay.
the way to, fight against the evils of abortion is to care for women, to serve in your pregnancy resource center, all these things, which I would totally agree with.
Yeah.
This video is not about that. This video is about how do we vote,
Exactly.
right, and voting. So just to be clear, no, I agree that the presidency very often does not make a substantial difference in this, and that your efforts in your local community, and even just caring for people, right, teaching your kids about biblical morality, right, bringing them to church, all these things, that also is going to end up, preventing unwanted pregnancies by and large, and preventing all that stuff. So all of that preventive measures is way more important.
For sure.
But this video is not about that.
It's about how to vote.
Yes, it's about how to
So
vote.
our vote should matter when it comes to that issue, right? We should be trying to care about the foundational issues that a lot of secondary and tertiary issues are built upon, right?
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. Lastly, I'd say a person or platform's position on fundamental issues is often a tell for the legitimacy of their position on secondary issues, right? And what I mean by that is that if they get a fundamental issue like the sanctity of life wrong, something that is very clear in Scripture, very clear even in natural order, you don't have to be a Christian to recognize that murder is wrong, right? Then I would say that it's wise to, at the very least, question their position on other issues, right? Like if you think punching people in the face on the street is okay.
Which I do. Of course.
Well, then it's probably best to question your take on parenting decisions, right?
For sure. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's very, very simple, but wise. So yeah, litmus test. How do you deal, as we talked about in previous videos, right? But how do you deal with the most vulnerable person in society? Well, if you will discard them,
and you think it's okay to murder them,
then I'm not going to trust your take on, very many other things. I'm going to be very, very skeptical.
Yeah.
Because, of course, people can live with cognitive dissonance. We all do it.
For sure.
And politicians, I'm sure, they do it a ton. But I'm going to be very concerned and say, okay, this is someone who is more about their own personal comfort, what is good for them, good in the moment, and that person's going to make probably a lot of unwise decisions.
For sure. Yeah, I think at the very least, it's okay to recognize that if a person gets this issue wrong, their logic and morality on other issues is clearly flawed, right? And it should impact the way we vote for them, the way we view them, the way we look at other policy decisions that they make, right? Is, okay, how do they value human beings? Like you said, the most vulnerable. Yeah. If they, like you said, disregard them, hate them, discard them, then we should treat that person with caution.
Yeah. So good. So to sum this up, so we're saying, and again, we're taking one issue. We could take other issues and say we shouldn't vote for someone who is extreme in these stances.
Yeah.
But what we're saying is one issue like the pro-life movement enough to vote for someone without regarding anything else? No, it's not. But should we, as Christians, I believe, not vote for those parties or individuals who are adamantly pro-abortion? Yeah, I think that's a disqualifying thing.
Exactly.
Not a qualifying thing. So I hope that's helpful for you. Feel free to share your thoughts in the comments and ask us questions. But we're going to be talking more as we're in election season right now. We're talking more about how should Christians vote. Thanks so much for watching this video. We're uploading great biblical content every single week, so make sure you subscribe, like this video, and leave a comment down below. We'd love to discuss with you. If you want to support us financially, there's a link in the description of this video. Thanks so much.